Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Here we go. You're now set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us today in class. Jason, thank you for engineering the broadcast. Jason Stanek, 2020, running for President of the United States. Seriously. You can go to the website, jasonstanek2020.com. And Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning, Vincent.
Good morning, Rick. And J.C.Cole is with us. Welcome, J.C.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to mention, gentlemen, that I just did a brief calculation. It's a rough thumbnail calculation about the length of travel that the signal is going from Oregon to Minnesota, so up to the satellite and back down. That's 50,000 miles. And then from JC on the East Coast in the Garden State, 50,000 miles round trip. And then from me in Missouri, 50,000 mile round trip. So we've got 150,000 miles worth of travel time for the three of us to be broadcasting simultaneously. And what that means is there's a delay, class. So we are going to do our best to try not to, and I guess the term in radio land is step on each other. So because of this delay, we might not know exactly when the other person is done with that sentence. Okay. So we're going to do our best, to try not to do that. We're going to be talking about farming, and I have maybe it's a semi-rhetorical question, but it's probably more real than rhetorical. And the question, I've asked it a couple times over the last few days, and here's what it is. If you believe just 10% of what we've been saying about the supply chain, about the corruption, about the lies, about the violence that is erupting all over the United States and the rest of the world as well, people have had it. If you believe just 10% of that's true, what would you do? Would you have a family meeting? Would you prepare for civil unrest? Would you prepare your food supply, your water supply, your housing? Would you circle the wagons? Would you meet with your family and say, what do we absolutely positively have to have? Not, what's nice to have, but what do we have to have? Do we need some propane? Do we need to move in with the grandparents? Do we need to move out of our house? Do we need to have our grandparents move in with us? What do we need to do to be safe? What do we need to do to ride out what it looks like is coming? Now, if you believe 10% of what we say is true, just 10%. Now, you don't have to believe any of it. But if you believe just 10% is true, what would you do? What would you do if you believed 20% of what we said is true? 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100%. What if you believed all of what we said is true? What would you do? There's only a few days left to the selection. And it looks like half the country is going to be unhappy, no matter who wins. Now, let me just throw one more piece of information into that equation. The president owns a lot of, his corporations control a lot of real estate. He's on the hook for, let's say, close to $1 billion with a B. That's a lot. And that being the case, those properties are golf courses and resorts and hotels, etc., where people go and temporarily stay. Not everybody moves into a hotel and doesn't move out. So those are kinds of things where they have transient guests, if you will. They come and go. That being the case, it would be incumbent upon him, if he were selfish, to present the idea that everything's okay. No problem. No masks, come golf, have dinner, stay at the hotel, everything's good. Well, seems like that's what he's doing. He's trying to let us know that it's okay. As a matter of fact, his scientific people at the White House have declared that the corona pandemic is over. Record number of cases, record number of infections. It's here in our little village in the middle of nowhere in Missouri, literally. We're infected. I mean, not the Finelli family, but across the road, down the road. It's almost in every county in the United States. And where there are more people, there's more infection. And what I'm trying to tell you is, what would you do if you actually realize that that's true? Would you do anything? That's what today's broadcast is about. Dr. Richard Alan Miller, any comments on what I've just said?
How much time do I have?
Well, you've got as much time as you would like, but you've got about let's say 6 minutes.
Thank you. Nothing any of us are being told is true. And it's so bad now that even my most trusted people, myself, I don't know. It isn't that it's true or not true. I don't know. And because I don't know, why is that? Well, do you believe that history repeats itself?
Absolutely.
Well, then, I saw the same exact I don't know in Nazi Germany in the early and mid-30s in my history class. And so I've seen anarchy. My 280Z, my beautiful 280Z blew a head gasket, and the bolt broke, and that meant they were going to have to tap it out. Is it going to be a hard thing to do or not? And with my 280Z, I didn't throw it away. I fixed it. And our government has a lot of problems, and I'm not kidding. I mean, we're talking about everything from our Social Security card number and what it stood for when Roosevelt first designed it, and what it has come to be today with no laws to support it. And yet, the United States government is still the best government in world history. Even though it's the biggest bully in the world, even over Rome, it's still the best. Are we going to throw that away? And that's what's happening in Portland and Seattle. My hometown in Seattle, I went up to visit. I came home from a 6-day vacation, and I saw 57,000 acres in smoke in my state, and had to realize at least provable 25% was arson. Why? I don't have answers. And I'm not sure what it really means, because it's as if both the Democratic and Republican parties have been infiltrated by something else. And I don't know, because I'm not very politically astute like you or JC. I'm just a nerd. But as a nerd, I'm now coming to realize that I really have no idea what's going on, and probably will never really know what happened. How does that work? That's my comment for the morning.
JC, your comments?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sitting on a farm like all of us, and first thing I do is I build up my immune system and try to get the family to build up theirs. I store food. I'd get water under my control, and I'd increase my security.
Okay, just a exclamation point. Class, tomorrow, Bert Bertonis is going to be with us. He's a patent holder. He's a radio frequency engineer, and he's going to teach us a DIY, do-it-yourself class on setting up a home security system, wireless. Now, I don't like wireless. I really don't, unless you absolutely have to do it. Walkie-talkies, I understand that. That's just for a few seconds here and there. But for your own security, we're going to teach you how to build a wireless network on the radio for video feed. for your safety. Now, that's kind of an exception for me because I wouldn't normally be doing that, but I think we're at the point where, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off of, Wi-Fi, electromagnetic radiation, and potential damage to your health versus losing your life sooner than that. JC, I'm absolutely positively with you. And I've been thinking about what do we need? And we've been having our family meetings. And I've been recommending to our class, have a family meeting. What you do is, it's real simple, class. And we're down to the wire. So tonight for dinner, and there's no excuse. Nobody's going to work. Okay. Nobody's going to work. So you sit down for dinner and you say, you have a pad and a pencil or pen, and you say, what is it that we would really not like, we would like to not be without? Boy, a can opener sure would be nice if we had a manual can opener, because if the electricity goes down during this spiral down of the United States, how are we going to open those cans? With a hammer and a screwdriver? How are we going to do it? So think about what you need. Do you need tools? Do you need spare parts? Do you need food? Do you need water? Do you need a water filtration system? What do you need? And write it down and jump on it now. And what we're finding out is prices are increasing. Availability is decreasing. You think I'm kidding? Just try to buy some paper towels. Just try it. Just try to buy some canned vegetables. Just try to buy pretty much anything that you think that you need. For example, if you have an old-fashioned agitator washing machine, you will find out that the laundry detergent has disappeared. The laundry detergent, that powdered stuff that you used, Tide, All, whatever it was, the brand, the house brand, whatever it was, it's disappeared. And the same thing with dishwashing detergent, the powdered stuff, it's getting harder to get. You can get those just drop it in, squeeze it in. That's easy to get. But the old-fashioned stuff, that's getting hard to get. And spare parts for your vehicles, getting hard to get.
Could I interject a second?
Please do.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. The first thing I would recommend everybody do is have a plan. When the grid or communication goes down, you know what you're going to do because you can't communicate with each other. Vincent, you're out in the field, you blew a tire, and without telling your wife, you went to town to go get a tire, and the grid went down. And she doesn't know where you are, and you don't know where you are in terms of her. What do? That's the first thing everybody should do, is have a battle plan for non-communication. Not things.
Very, very well said. Now, let me explain. From my perspective, that would never happen. However, it would happen often in other places, and I'll tell you why. Nobody here at the farm goes anywhere without telling everybody where he or she is going. Okay? So, for example, I'm going to check the mail. It's a third of a mile trip each way down our private road, driveway, if you want to call it that, to the mailbox. Nobody goes to check the mail. It's just a third of a mile away, just walking down the driveway without telling others. Why? Because we know it's a 10 or 15 minute walk, taking it easy. And if that person's not back in 15 or 20 minutes, something's wrong, and the rescue party's out there. Same thing with the tractor. We have walkie-talkies. We communicate. We say, here's where we are. We're moving from this field to that, to the next field, to the next field. Here's where we are. Everything's okay. Just checking in. That's what we do. And we'll talk about driving and travel when we come back. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. J.C.Cole's with us. And we're talking about what we see happening. And Rick mentioned communications, very important. So in our world, right here at the farm, we use Bofang radios. They're not great, but they work. And they're relatively inexpensive. And they were about, around $25 a piece, roughly. So you get 3 of them for $75 or less. Place to get them is Amazon. And they are a little ham rig. And you're supposed to have a license with it. But the fact of the matter is, in emergency situations, the ham licensing regulations go out the window. They are not required in case of an emergency. So I have a ham ticket, so, and I studied for it and I passed the test. But I'm just telling you that Bofang UV-5R is a great little radio. Anyway, we carry them. and we carry them with us around in the village. And they reach pretty far, a couple miles. Bottom line is, nobody leaves without everybody knowing where we all are. So if we were going to the big city, let's say, like in the good old days, out to Springfield, Missouri, what we would do is we'd say, we're going to, and I'm just going to make this up, we're going to stop at Home Depot. Then we're going to go to Aldi. Then we're going to go get gas at Sam's Club. And then we're going to go, here are the stops and here is the order. And here is the expected time that we'll be at each one of these places. Okay. And here's our ETA, for back at the farm. And here's the route we're going to take. And everybody knows the path. Now, if something goes wrong and that person is late in coming home, the search party goes out. And where do they go? Well, they know where to go. They start based on going backwards, based on the path that the person was taking. That's what we would do. Now, you can do that too. All you have to do is communicate with your family. But in America, we seem to have forgotten how to do that. What we do is we just take off. I know people, and I would say, how's your wife? Oh, I think she's fine. So, yeah, is she coming over? I don't know. Do you know where she is? No, I don't know where she is. How is that possible? How is it possible that some guy doesn't know where his wife is and they live in the same house? How is that possible? It's not possible in my world. So what I'm saying is, if you want to protect yourselves, you need to communicate. And if you want to know how to do it and use hand signals and do it without walkie-talkies and that kind of thing, and with walkie-talkies, and how to be brief, go watch Combat. C-O-M-B-A-T! Exclamation point. I've been assigning it as homework for a lot of reasons. Now you know why. It will teach you a lot of what you need to know. JC?
Vincent, I agree with you. I have a bunch of bale fangs, and so do my friends. And I actually, because they're so inexpensive, I give them away to my close friends for Christmas. And we also have a base unit that has a little more power and a higher quality. But the one thing with the bale fangs is that some of the frequencies it uses does not require a ham radio if somebody sets it up for you properly.
That's right. That's right. One quick question, JC. What can you give us a thumbnail sketch of your base? You've got an antenna, high up, and in a central location, you've got a unit that will reach farther out.
Well, what I've done is I haven't set it up totally yet. I had talked to some experts on what they'd recommend. So I got an ICOM. It's a 700 series that I think it cost at that time about $700 to $800, and a portable antenna. Remember, I'm in New Jersey, so I might have to move quickly, and I actually stored it in an aluminum suitcase.
Okay. All right. Let me give you just a thumbnail. Okay. It's partially shielded. Let me just give you a thumbnail sketch on that. I've done some testing, and I've taken a cell phone years ago, and I've wrapped it in 3 layers of aluminum foil. Okay, tightly wrapped, kind of like a candy wrapper would be wrapped. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. I've put a cell phone in a microwave oven, with the power disconnected, and a microwave oven is shielded. Cell phone frequency is the same as a 2.4 gigahertz microwave frequency. Microwave cavity, the box you cook in, it's supposed to shield the electromagnetic radiation. You can call your cell phone right through the microwave oven. No kidding. So what I'm saying is, it takes a little bit more than the aluminum suitcase. It's a good start, but you might want to put it in a 55-gallon drum with a tight. This is a different world. During the commercial break, I bought some paper towels. And I went online and I put them in the cart and I went to checkout. And it took me 8 seconds. 8 seconds to go from the cart to checkout. I put one item in the cart. Paper towels. And in that 8 seconds, they took it out of the cart and said, we'll save this for later. If we ever get any more. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. If you think you can dilly-dally and you can think about it, I don't think you have time. We've tried to buy tires. And we think about it for just a short time, and by the time we think about it, they're gone. And I'm talking about wholesale tires. I'm not talking about, going to the tire store and then, looking at the display. I'm talking about wholesale, the big warehouses that have them. You can't get 4 or 5 tires all the same, generally, in our neck of the woods. It's hard to do. JC, any comments about that? Are you seeing this?
I am not seeing that because I live in a very densely populated area. So on certain supplies like that, we're still doing okay. But I wanted to go back to the ham and the Beofeng for just a second because a very important point came up. Besides putting in aluminum, my base station in aluminum attaché, I wrap it in a double layered Mylar metallized bag. And what I look at all of the threats that are facing us, and I try to assign a probability of it happening. Now that's not a perfect Faraday cage, but it's somewhat the best I can do. Unfortunately, I looked in my wallet and I don't have enough money to do everything I want to do. And I think most of us are in that situation. So I have to make decisions on what I can do. And, and so I don't have 100% protection from an EMP 1 or 2. But I have a fairly good. And then I said, well, what's the probability that would happen versus let's go to something like that our supply chain would collapse. And so I have much more stress on the supply chain collapse, than if we get hit with an EMP from a nuke. And
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
And so it came up to a very interesting point where we have people, some of my friends have been prepping for a very long time and know this stuff. And some of my friends have just woken up. And so I actually created a 3-page document called Beginning Important Preps, so that I could just send it to them instead of them calling me up, and I explained to everybody. And one of them is food storage. Just have food storage.
All right, are you going to talk about food storage? But before you do, let me mention one thing. JC, here I have a suggestion for you. Take a cell phone, if you can find one, if you have one, and put it in that Mylar bag inside that aluminum case and make a phone call to it and see if it rings.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Real simple test. If it rings, it's not perfect. Okay? If it doesn't ring, perfect. All right? And there's some thoughts about should it be grounded or not grounded, meaning if you could ground that aluminum attaché case, would it be better? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe that, for example, if you take a 55-gallon drum, and some of them have these bands where you can unlatch the band that holds the lid on, and the lid would be steel, the drum would be steel, almost a perfect seal. Not quite. If you turned it upside down with water in it, it would leak, yeah. But because they have gaskets, but when they open them up, they take the gaskets off, these rubberized gaskets, and they don't hold water anymore or liquid. Well, but other than that, it's pretty darn good. And I would set that, believe it or not, on the ground so that when an EMP is hurled our way, the EMP would go around the 55-gallon drum right to the ground.
Right. Right.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. And, I actually can do that because I have a couple of 55-gallon, food grade drums sitting out in my driveway right now that, when I looked at the probability of the supply chain collapsing, I said, there's short-term food storage and there's long-term food storage. Mm-hmm. And short-term is just to buy rice in bags at, let's say, Costco and put it in a 55-gallon drum and seal it. Now that's not long-term, but right. We're looking at short-term at the moment. And so there's a combination of, different applications you can do. And, of course, it all depends on how much money is in your wallet.
You guys are, interestingly, in my humble opinion, kind of talking about the wrong things first. Well, I mean, they're all important. Every single thing you're talking about is important. But, I'm trying to prioritize because I'm just a nerd. I'm not politically astute. But let me tell you a little thing that just happened to me, and I'm at loss to explain how that works other than privacy. What am I going on? Okay, so we're talking about communications, having a battle plan that if one of us has to leave the house, we have a plan on what to do if something happens, like a bomb going off, an earthquake, pandemic, whatever. I got caught in a bullshit pandemic thing in March when I had a flu, but it was not coronavirus, and I was quarantined right out of the gate for statistics. And I'm sitting here talking to some friends, and all of a sudden, my computer turns itself on, and I have 3 platforms. I have 7, 8.1, and 10 with Microsoft. And 2 of them, the day I went on vacation, stopped working because Microsoft no longer supports 8.1 or 10 for Office, Microsoft Office. It now is 365 Cloud. And here I am trying to set up email, and I can't open my password file. So I buy on vacation. I buy the 360. I'm going somewhere as a metaphor. I go buy the thing, but I can't download it because I don't have my email. Microsoft, talking to a human being, there's no problem. Why don't you give me your password file? I will upload it to the cloud, and we'll open it for you, and we'll give you your password. Now, you tell me what's wrong with that. And then I unplugged my camera, but my sound mic is on. I unplugged my sound mic, and my telephone landline is on. I unplugged my landline. Listen, I just swept my house, and I found 2 bugs in the bedroom that were dead. Who put those there? I'm here 24/7. How did they get there? I'm being raped as a senior citizen. Let's call it senior abuse with telephone calls. 75. 3 out of 4 phone calls are now automated. Hi, this is Jane. How are you doing, Rick? Are you a human being? I would say back, click. Now, I don't have an answer to this. I'm an old man, and I am being physically abused. And I want to know why Microsoft is doing this on all 3 platforms where here's one that happened 4 days ago. 4 days ago, I was told I have a potential patron that's going to give me $200,000 to publish all my old manuscripts, and we set up a Skype. And on my 7 platform, my Skype is no longer supported. I can't talk to him, and his Skype in Brazil also won't work. That very moment. I don't believe any of it anymore. And yet, I'm looking like I'm becoming a sick old man, paranoid, delusional. You're losing it, Rick, because of gang stalking, which is exactly what it's going. Now we move to a different place. When I worked military, I worked with experimental college out of the University of Washington, and that's what everything was lined on. And when I worked for the smoking man, Dr. Carl Schleicher, MRU, was the front door for all the paranormal studies for the military. He died. Robert Stone took over, and was in FOP. He was in inept. It didn't work very well. And then, guess who runs it now? My ex-wife, with no doctorate, no nothing. How does that work? I have got a lot of questions. I'm not finding any answers, and I'm looking like I'm a crazy old man. And when you tell me, well, you put this microwave thing in there, what we're talking about is 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and now, guess what? 6G. And the reason 5G is not good is because it has no symmetry. It's toxic to the human body. And that's what causing the bumblebees to scatter, because that's their bandwidth that they use for navigation. And 6G, which is even higher microwave band, I mean, what is going on? I could tell you from one perspective, creepy, we're being terraformed right in front of ourselves by black goo. Now, that's a metaphor, because it doesn't work like that any more than space is real. It's what I can conceive based on my limited abilities and perception. And something else is going on right now, and we're running around in little ant circles that don't make any sense. Let's try it this way. How many ants are on your property, Vincent? And considering hive consciousness, who's terraforming the earth more? With your bulldozer or your underground network?
Well, it depends on when, and can I count the ants? Of course not. And are there more ants now than before? No.
Yeah,
there are fewer ants.
It gets worse and worse. We're missing the big picture, which is what I'm supposed to bring to the theater. And I can tell you, I don't know. I really don't know. And I trust certain media, and I can't anymore. Any media. And now people look to me because they trust me, and I'm the first to say, I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. So where are we going with this in terms of survival?
We'll be right back. Rick, I'd like to ask you not to use profanity on the air, please.
What's that?
We'll be right back with Dr. Richard Alan Miller and J.C.Cole. If you think about it, Skype used to be absolutely fabulous. It was free, and it worked, and it worked. It was just great. Microsoft bought it, and then there was update after update after update, and updates weren't compatible with other updates. Updates weren't compatible with processors and versions of Windows. And Microsoft has escalated the complexity to the point where I don't want it, and I haven't used it in several years. And so I don't have Skype. I took it off all the computers, and I haven't bought a copy of Microsoft anything for at least 15 years, and I have no plans on doing it. I don't have Microsoft 360. I don't have a new copy of Microsoft Office, and you don't need it. You can do almost everything you want to do with Linux Mint. Linux, Linux, Mint. And I'm sitting here running this broadcast on Linux Mint, and it just works and works and works. And how much is it?
Did anything incorrect, Vincent? I apologize for my excitement and all of that. I humbly apologize. I don't mean I'm scared. I realize now my privacy is gone. Right now,
Rick, all of our privacy is gone. And unless you dump Verizon, T-Mobile, Microsoft, Skype, your cell phone,
it's all
your
crazy.
Smart television, you've got to dump all of it. Now, and I'll tell you what, all right, since we're off on this little bit of tangent, and this isn't survival, well, in some ways it's not immediate survival. And I think that's what we were going to talk about today, was more immediate survival. But I don't have a smart television connected to the internet. Why? Because I don't want those parasites looking at what I do. I don't want them to know what I'm watching on television. So if I'm watching a DVD of combat, which I do, I don't want those guys to know about it. I don't want those guys to turn on the camera. I don't want those guys to turn on the microphone. It's none of their business, those peeping Tom perverted parasites. It's none of their business. And I'm doing everything I can to prevent them from having access. Now, class, I'm going to tell you something that you may not know. There is a switch in software that can switch your microphone with your camera. And it can be done remotely. So if you have a notebook or a laptop computer and you've got that camera in the lid and you say, well, I'm going to turn off the camera, but I'll leave the microphone on so I can talk, using the computer. Well, they can switch remotely, whoever they are, your camera with your microphone. Flip that switch in software. They can turn your camera on and your microphone off or remotely turn on. There are back doors that Microsoft and many of these other commercial developers have put into your software. If you have a computer that has a soft, S-O-F-T, on-off switch, where you just touch this little membrane thing, and it's not like a hard switch, like a wall switch, a light switch. It does not totally disconnect the power. So your computer is on all the time. I'm looking across the desk right now. I've got 3 screens in front of me, 3 computers running. And I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 power switches, 12 separate power switches. Now, when I come into the studio, I literally power up each one of these devices. And there's no way any of them can be remotely powered on because I've cut the electricity off to every single device when I'm not in the studio. If I don't want it on, it's not on. They can't hose me. They can't bypass my security system for my equipment because it's off. And if you go into the kitchen, there's another one of these power devices that turns on the television screen. It turns on the stereo, the 1970s stereo. It turns on the DVD player. I turn everything off that's not being used for 2 reasons. 1, security. 2, for power consumption. Because these devices are always running, always drawing some amount of power. And I'm not going to waste hard-earned electricity because the manufacturers think I'm too stupid to turn off the power. Now, if you have a television with a remote control and you point that remote control at your television, do you think the television was off? How could it possibly be off and then recognize the signal from the remote to turn it back on? How is that possible? It was on all the time. Not 100%, but it was on enough to receive that signal from your remote to say, let's power up the rest of the way. America doesn't seem to know that.
It's like your subconscious. It's constantly turned on.
Yeah. That's exactly right. JC, and when we come back, would you please share with us your thoughts about what we should do right now? Well, not right now, in about 1 hour and 2 minutes from right now. What we should do, because that's when the broadcast will be over. What should we do in terms of our own survival? What should we do immediately? J.C.Cole's with us in New Jersey, the Garden State. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us in Oregon, and I am in the corrupt state of Missouri. Now, I'm not saying we're the most corrupt. I think J.C. wins. J.C. wins the Corruption State Award, and we're probably second, and then Oregon might be third. Everyone all set? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us on the West Coast. J.C.Cole on the East Coast. I'm in the middle of the country in Missouri. J.C., we were talking about immediacy, and I think time is running out. I really mean it. I think we need to know what to do right now for our own survival. What is it? Please.
Well, I agree with you. I think there is a great push, and there's a time of the urgency is needed to respond. What I would recommend first is to get reference. Basically find an expert, but the easiest way to do that is buy books, a couple of books, and the 2 I recommend is one is our friend Matt Stein's book, When Technology Fails, because a lot of answers are in there on what to do. And the other one was that I like was by Holly Deyo, Deyo, called Dare to Prepare. Those are pretty complete books. And maybe possibly in one of our, future broadcasts, we can cover off maybe 10 books that we all find valuable for our learning. So that gets us there. And then, to begin, and then look at what beginning preps you need. Doc Ram, you're correct that this big picture is something we need to pay attention to. And at the same time, we have to make sure we don't overload ourselves and shut down. We are humans and we can do that. And so I would stay focused on right now, the rule of threes. I think, Vincent, you can cover off on that, what the rule of threes are. But, the black goo is not going to get us if we starve to death first. And while, yes, I've been paying attention to some of that stuff, I believe it's food and water and the ability to protect ourselves. So, Vincent, what do you think?
Well, you're absolutely right about the books. And I've been recommending for at least 10 years, books are the way to go. And there are so many places where you can buy books. Like in the good old days, Goodwill. And it seems that people don't read anymore, at least around my neck of the woods. And the young people inherit these books when their relatives die, and they can't wait to get rid of them. So they bring them over to Goodwill. Goodwill can't wait to get rid of them. They sell them for $1. So let's say you have a 26 volume set of encyclopedia. It could be Britannica. It could be World Book, $1 a piece. Literally. It's amazing. You can't buy that much BTUs in firewood for $26. Okay. So people are throwing out, encyclopedia sets. They're throwing out, the physician's desk reference. They're throwing out medical encyclopedia sets. And I am delighted that they are so stupid that they're willing to get rid of them, because in the good old days, I would buy them. Now, the books that you've recommended, When Technology Fails, Matt Stein, M-A-T, Stein, M-A-T-T, Stein. He's deceased now. The USA Prepares senior instructor, great guy. He's been to the farm, wonderful man. And, his book, When Technology Fails, absolutely superb. He had another book called When Disaster Strikes, absolutely superb. I have both of them. And I also have Holly Deyo's book that you recommended, which is almost an encyclopedia as well. And it's Dare to Prepare. And I've talked with Holly Deyo on the phone and her husband Stan, and Stan is a USA Prepares instructor as well. So those are 3 fabulous books to get you started. Now, when this EMP hits, when the grid goes down, when the grid becomes unstable, when your computer quits and it's finally had enough surges and jolts that it just can't wake up anymore, you're not going to be able to read PDF files from your computer. Paper is the way to go. Now, the problem with paper is it's not as portable. You can't take a whole bunch of books with you in a little tablet. That's the disadvantage. But the advantage is it's here for a long time, as long as it doesn't get moldy and doesn't get wet. So in my world, I have a library. Rick, Rick, how would you comment about our library here?
Libraries are one of the bastions that made America strong. And like the U.S. Postal Service can't bust them by Oshkosh. And when you have, your the 3 S's that you're talking about, 3 seconds for air, 3 minutes for, here, 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. What's important? Well, the air you're breathing, okay, and you start there. Have you noticed, FYI, that chemtrails started up again last week? Why is that?
Yes.
We're in a war, and we don't even see it. And this war is identical to what happened in Nazi Germany in the mid and early 30s. Here we are. And you have a choice. Everyone listening to me, you have a choice. What are you going to do? And I do not think revolution is the answer. That's essentially what they're trying to do in Oregon, where I am, with forest fires and people shooting each other in the streets up in Portland. It's crazy, and it's done with intent. And in terms of the virus, my guess is that if Wuhan got leaked out this thing, how's that mask going to help you? Now, I'm going to talk about civil rights here, and the British Columbia 2 days ago just passed a law that masks were no longer required. They were recommended, but you do not need to wear a mask anymore. And here I am in Grants Pass walking down the street, and then I have to put a mask on to go into a restaurant. At the front door, I put the mask on. I go through the front door. They shoot me, and I take the mask off. What the heck is the mask doing? If I have to wear it or I don't have to wear it, right? What exactly is going on here? And if the mask is so important, how come I'm seeing people driving down the street inside a car alone wearing a mask? What's that about? The ignorance that I'm seeing and fear is such that if you're afraid, like me, I'm on red alert when I don't want to offend anyone anymore, and I realize that just my style of being offends some people. I'm so humbly sorry. Swear words aside, all those kinds of things. I'm on red alert. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to do a right thing. I'm trying to be a right person. And no matter what I do, that's going to be wrong by somebody's standards. And that's...
Okay, Rick. Very interesting. Very interesting.
In town and people offending because I'm not wearing a mask. I don't see a dispensary by the government anywhere for be recycled. What's going on?
I actually understand why people are wearing a mask in their cars. I actually do. And the reason I believe that they're doing that is because of the car in front of them. And let's say they're in bumper-to-bumper traffic, and you can smell the exhaust of the car in front of you if you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic. And seriously,
I needed that.
You can.
I needed that.
Well, but that's just anecdotal.
Humor. Gonna laugh.
Well, that's just anecdotal.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm serious. That's anecdotal. But all of our vehicles have these flow-through ventilation systems. So what happens, class, is the cowl right where your windshield wipers are by your windshield, at the base of your windshield, but right by where the hood meets the windshield. Air goes into your car there. And if you have a modern car, in the last 30 years or so, the fan motor, the circulation motor, will draw air in, whether you've got it on or not, to make sure you have fresh air coming in, at least some amount. Even if you have it off, it's still on. And it's pulling air through the cowl into the cabin, and then it exits through the holes in the door and through where the door meets, the front door meets the back door. There are escape paths, and that's where the air exits. So the guy behind you is breathing your air from your cabin. And so I believe that the reason...
there's other things going on here.
Oh, yes.
The reason I send my children to school is to get them exposed to these viruses so that they build up their own natural immunity. Now, give me the reason I wouldn't send my children to school is for the same reason. I don't want them exposed to things that I would think are injurious. But let's go to something else. During one of the commercial breaks of this broadcast, I heard something I couldn't believe. Now, class, if you were paying attention during the commercial break and you heard the news, you heard that the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the temporary residence of the Trump family, is now claiming the biggest and best economy in the history of our country. They've lost their minds. People are out of work. People are jobless. This is not the biggest and best economy. Unless you're measuring with a false paradigm, this is not
the biggest and best economy. This is the second Great Depression. And I can't believe it. Now, I do have 2 degrees in economics, but they're probably useless. And by today's measurement methods. But I got to tell you, people have to have productivity in order to have a great economy. Nobody says, boy, I'll tell you what, it'd be great to be in Biafra. Those guys know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. Economies are measured by the greatness of the products, the greatness of the service. And we have shut down manufacturing. We have shut down service. Restaurants are about 90% shut down. Sears, J.C.Penney, and a whole bunch of other companies are on the throes of closing all their doors. Many have already. This is the greatest shutdown in the history of the United States. And yet, the White House has the audacity to tell us that this is the biggest and best economy in the history of our country. Absolute nonsense. Shame on you. Shame on you, White House. And all of you guys who are backing those idiotic statements. It angers me. You know, what's wrong with telling the truth? What's wrong with saying, you know what? People are losing their homes. People are on the streets. People are hungry. People can't pay their electric bills. People can't pay their water bills. People can't pay their mortgages. People can't pay their rent. That's the biggest and best economy in the history of the United States? Nonsense. I'm literally furious.
Yeah,
let's get down to
here. And when the homeless camp next to your door and you call the police can't do anything because the homeless have rights to do what they need to do.
I'm going to give you a number, right?
There's lawsuits.
I'm going to give you a number. Remember this number, 90. I'm going to tell you what that number means when we come back. Okay, class. I mentioned the number 90. And just help me with this arithmetic. It's pretty simple. So let's say you want to buy some food, and we're going to do this on the cheap. We're going to talk about food that will just get you by. Maybe have enough protein in it. It's not going to be the best. It's not going to be the best nutrition, but it'll get you by. One item. Just one item. And I'm not suggesting that you do this. I'm just giving you the numbers so it will sink in as to how serious the situation is. Let's say we're only going to eat one thing. And that one thing is going to be a can of baked beans. Pork and beans, baked beans, vegetarian beans, whatever you want to call it. Roughly that 14.5 to 15.5 ounce size can. Okay? Now I know for a fact that can be a meal. You know, if you were in a hurry, you could open one of those cans and pour it onto a plate and eat it cold. No electricity needed. Manual can opener. You can eat it. One can of beans. Okay. So let's say we have just one can of beans per meal. And we have breakfast, and we have lunch, and we have dinner. And there's just one of us. Just one person. That's 3 cans of beans a day. 7 days in a week, that's 21 cans of baked beans for one person per week. 21 cans. When I was in corporate America, I learned that there's roughly 4.3 weeks in a month. Not 4, but 4.3. You multiply 21 cans per week times 4.3 weeks in a month, that's 90. 90 cans of beans per person per month. So my question to our class is, how many of you have enough canned vegetables, if that's all you were going to eat, because you've already cleaned out your refrigerator, the milk's gone, the butter's gone, the cheese is gone, the bread's gone, all that, eggs, all that's gone, and now all you have left is cans of vegetables. If you have a can of cans of corn and cans of green beans and cans of peas and cans of baked beans, it's 90 cans per person per month. If there are 2 of you, husband and wife, 180 cans a month. If there are 3 of you, 270 cans per month. Are you ready for that? Are you ready? JC, I'd love to hear your comments. in terms of immediacy? Have I lost my mind? Do you think that's accurate? Are there any holes in that?
I do think it's accurate. I don't know. I didn't review it in that detail. But I did the exact same thing with rice. I came across some information that said if you eat only rice, which I never want to do, but if you eat only rice, you need 1 50-pound bag per person per month. And that will give you about 2,600 calories a day. And that today, if you go to Costco, that 50-pound bag of rice costs $20. So that would mean you would need 12 bags for one person per year, and that would be 600 pounds of rice, which would cost you about $240. So for one person per year, minimum base survival level, it costs you $240. And that's what I'm pushing my friends for, my close friends, that they do this, because if things work out well, most of us can lose $240 worth of value. But if things don't work out well, you have the base minimum. And of course, you being a farmer, Vincent, you know that you have probably 40 different things you could add to the rice to make it much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also you could use it as an extender for your dog food. And that's another thing. What do you do about your dogs? We've got 5 dogs here, and they all know when it's breakfast, and they all know when it's dinner time. They all know, and they're hungry. And what are you going to do about it? I have a suggestion for that when we come back. I don't know if you can do this anymore, class, but in the good old days, December and earlier, you could buy from the Chinese factory outlet dog food, 40-pound bags, 45-pound bags, 50-pound bags. And if you spent $35 or more, they would ship it to you for free. And so a number of people have bought dog food and had it shipped. Now, when it's shipped, they ship it in another bag, an outer bag that seals the inner bag. So think of it like a shipping bag. And it's pretty tough. And so for the same price as going to the Chinese factory outlet and picking it up yourself, they would ship it to you. And it would be double bagged. Now you could take those double bagged dog food bags and put it in a 55-gallon drum with a removable steel lid and keep it at a constant temperature. You don't want to keep it where it's, in the rain or outside, where it's in the sun and it gets hot and cold, because that causes an air exchange, and it allows more oxygen to get to the dog food, and it will go bad faster. But if you keep it cool and dry, it will last months and probably a couple years. And that can be done. Now, how much do those 55-gallon drums cost? Now, I'm talking about immediacy now. Well, you can go to Craigslist and you can buy them. Now, we use them here at the farm for all kinds of things. We use them to make culverts. We weld them together, and then instead of buying a culvert for, $1,000, we will take some 55-gallon drums that we pay between $12.50 and $14 a piece for, and we buy them by the trailer load, and we weld them together, and then we put them in the ground, coat them with tar, and we make our own culverts for, let's say, 4 pieces times $12.50. Okay? That's the kind of stuff we do, and then the water can travel through the culverts, and we can drive on the dirt on top of the culvert. But you can also use those same 55-gallon drums for all kinds of storage. Cat food, dog food, chicken food, people food, EMP cans. A lot of great things for $12.50. So you can negotiate, but go to Craigslist and only buy the ones that have been used for food. You don't want ones that have been used for insecticide. J.C.Cole, any comments?
I agree with you totally. We are actually doing that right now. Here in New Jersey, it looks like they're about 25, used food grade or about $25 a piece. And you can use them for all kinds of things, including, if you want to cache something, to storing food short term, I use them, to put, I have chickens and I use them to put, chicken grain in, the bags of chicken grain, short term, so that the rodents don't get to it. So back to you, Vince.
Right. No, I that's what we do. And one other thing about the chicken grains, we found that our chickens don't like some of the corn. We'd buy 50 pound bags of chicken corn, ground up corn, cracked corn. They won't eat it. I mean, they won't eat it. And so be really careful. Make sure that if you buy it, you test it and make sure that your animals will eat it, because otherwise you might be stuck with it. And another thing that's happening is David in Illinois mentioned yesterday that the quality of food in cans is going down. He's finding twigs in canned beans. So have we. I'm talking about green beans. Okay, where'd the twigs come from? They didn't used to be in there. They used to have people watching to make sure that that kind of stuff didn't happen. Well, I guess the people who are watching are at home working, right? And they are not on the production line. So nobody's watching the twigs. So now what's happening is great value pasta in the box, which should store, if you keep it cool and dry, and I'm not exaggerating, 5 years. I don't care what they say or used to say, it would last for 5 years if you kept it cool and dry. Not anymore. Now it doesn't even make it to the best buy date on the box before the bugs hatch. I am not kidding. Where? Aldi. Aldi is off our list because Aldi pasta has turned into a bug motel. And so has Great Value. Now, why did we buy Great Value? Because we like it? No. Because that's all that was available. Because what has happened is the supply chain has broken. It's broken to the point where you don't have very many choices. I tried again 3 times while we've been on this broadcast to buy some paper towels for our shop. And I put them in the cart, good to go, checkout, click. Oops. It says, oops, something has happened. They take it out of the shopping cart. Why? Because they don't have it. Try to buy aspirin. Go ahead. Try to buy a generic kind of aspirin. I'm talking about the 325 milligrams. Try to find Pine Sol. Try to find the disinfectants. Try to find the things that you think that you're going to need. Just try. See what happens. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't know how to use the mouse. Maybe I don't know how to use the screen. Maybe I don't know how to read. But I'm having a lot of trouble finding things. I should say that differently.
Yeah, it's going to get even worse because now, and that was an article I sent you yesterday, some of the vegetables and fruits that were growing in our Victory Gardens are sprouting too early. Strawberries are now, the seed inside the strawberry is beginning to germinate before the strawberry is ripe. Why? That's the sun and the long band bursts that are happening now that cause germination in certain kinds of fruits and vegetables. And the thing is, we are in a new situation. Change is the rule. You can always count on the fact that things are not going to remain the same. That's a given. So IQ, intelligence, is actually a measure of adaptability. How quickly can you adapt to a new situation? But I have to remind everyone of Benjamin Franklin. When you give up a civil right for safety, you lose both. And so it's important that you know your rights and that you hold firm to those inalienable rights and that you hold true, because things like your Social Security card number is not supposed to be how you're identified. That was Roosevelt. And yet, here we are, that's a given. Everybody just assumes that's how what is your social security number as a way of identification to you? And that was not supposed to be the way it was. So what's going on? We are slowly being encroached from all directions, and the fear part, like coronavirus, is a facade to take your attention away from other things that are happening at the same time. And I am here to tell you that I don't have a clue. And if I don't know, what does that say?
You know, Doc Ram.
Class, I just went to eBay.
What? I didn't get any of that. What?
Yeah, Doc Ram, I agree with you. We have some very interesting things happening with the sun. And this goes right back to prepping. One of the basic concepts about preparing is that you have the resources to get through a period of chaos.
There you go. And yes, sir.
And
JC,
and I think
what you started, Matt and I, on this path, it's all your fault.
Thank you. Thank you.
I remember when you paid for a sustainable lifeboat, and I asked you, what does that mean? And you said it's a lifeboat with oars. I don't forget anything, and I'm grateful.
Okay, so preparedness is really simple. Class, preparedness is having what you need before you need it. Let me give you a very simple, concrete example. So you know you've got plenty to eat. Okay? You know that. And I'm talking about the good old days, December and earlier. You open your kitchen refrigerator and you say, there's nothing to eat. Now, being prepared would be having what you wanted or needed in that refrigerator before you open the door. So being prepared is having what you need before you need it. It's that simple. It's that simple. So I went to eBay during the last 5 minutes, and I clicked in vegetable gardening book.
Simple boardwalk.
Or books.
But I want to do.
And you will find that for $4 and change,
if I can,
you can buy vegetable gardening books.
I want you to be.
And I suggest that you do that. I suggest you buy some books on how, I just bought one called The Edible Garden. It's almost a couple hundred pages. It's as simple as that. It was $4 and change. I just bought one. Did I ever read it? No. Do I know if it's any good? No. But for $4, 192 pages, it talks about, gardening. Asparagus, carrots, tomatoes, corn, peaches.
Yes and no.
I think, vegetables, herbs, berries, fruit trees, and citrus. $4.09. Available on eBay. It's by Sunset Books, The Edible Garden. Now, is it worth $4.09 for you to have that information? You'll have to answer that question. For me, absolutely. And what would I do without to have that $4.09? Oh, I don't know, maybe a cup of Starbucks coffee. Which I would never buy. Never. JC?
Oh, I agree with you totally. And what I ended up doing is starting to collect reference books that were low cost about 6 years ago, and I'm up to over 700 physical books on pretty much every subject you could imagine that's related to what we've been talking about. Growing food, repairing machinery, welding, and you know, so I have that reference that hopefully I'll never need, but it didn't cost me.
I just have one question. Is it made with real Girl Scouts? That's our problem. We don't have enough humor. We've got to somehow laugh our way through this, because otherwise we're going to end up shooting each other.
That's true. Sometimes you just got to laugh at it. And at the same time, by the way, one of the best books to have is the Boy Scout Handbook.
There it is. And it was a 5-volume.
Absolutely.
I have this edition in my library. How to fish.
Yeah, and the Boy Scouts were destroyed from within. absolutely destroyed. It's now
like
Homo Central.
Else. We're being infiltrated by something creepy. And I'm not even sure it's human.
One of the guys,
we have.
Sorry about that. One of the guys I
have
studied
commercials
said
right here.
All good will be attacked.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've talked about right here on USA Prepares how to do things, and these little parasites come out of the woodwork, and they would attack us to the point where even on the internet, even on the podcast, YouTube replays, they would attack us merciless. I don't know if you've heard the anxiety in my voice, but class, there is Friday, that's tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 days before the selection. What would you do if you thought that just 10% of what we've been talking about for 10 years is true? What would you do? Would you have that family meeting? I know I've said it several times. I absolutely mean it. Rick, I have a question for you, and then you've got the floor. I've received an email from Mac, M-A-C, and she had some questions, and I think that they would be best answered by an email from you. Are you willing to give out your email address or not?
Who, me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Rick at nwbotanicals.org. Listen, Vincent, I've been hacked. My Richard Alan Miller doesn't work. My website doesn't work. My cash flow doesn't work. I've got a brand new book that is coming out right now with Missy and Grace Thorne called Kids Ask the Darndest Questions. It's essential. And what I need from you, as best I can, are a list of the questions or things I might have sent you, anything that you can find, and those recordings, those particular times when Missy and Grace Thorne were on asking questions of Dr. Norm Shealy or me. And if you can help me put that together, we've got a brand new book out with publisher all good to go, children's book on kids ask the darndest questions.
Now, when you say Missy, are you speaking of Missy Shimizu in Missouri?
Yes, I am. Yes. Now, we've already spoken with her yesterday and the day before. She and Grace are working on the book right this minute.
Great, wonderful.
And what we're going to do, by the way, Grace's kids that were sixth grade have already graduated high school. One has become a famous athlete. I mean, really famous athlete. Others are doing what they were doing. And what we're going to do is a post-interview on what that did for their life being on your show. It's a then question, like kids ask the darndest questions like, if pigs are so smart, how come parrots can talk and pigs can't? That was Gunner. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to do these questions and responses from Norm and I as a start on an educational reform movement we're doing. Thanks, Vincent. Mm-hmm. That's all I needed from you. I need those as soon as possible.
Well, Rick, I don't have any information about that, but here's what I can tell you. Class, what Rick is talking about is years ago, Grace Thorne was a teacher. She taught sixth grade in Ryan, Oklahoma. And she would have her children prepare all month that one question that they'd like to ask Rick separately, Rick and me, and Norm Shealy and me. And so we did a classroom-type broadcast with sixth graders. And they went to the conference room of their elementary school in Ryan, Oklahoma, and they would step up to the speakerphone and ask that one question. And when Rick was on with me, he would answer the questions. When Norm Shealy was on, he would answer the questions. Now, that is all available if you want to do a search, Missy and Grace, and you can do a search. Go to YouTube. Go to the Ron Gibson channel, Ron G-I-B-S.
Okay. Anybody listening, if you can send those to me, those links, that would be useful. I need them now.
Okay, and here's what you do. Just search for Grace Thorne, Thorn, and Rick Miller, and USA Prepares. And you should find a bunch of them. Now, and also do a separate search, same thing, just take Rick out and put Norm Shealy in, and you'll find the others. And so that's where they are. They are on YouTube. They're all there. Ron's got them. And so you've got all the information that you need.
Thanks, Vincent.
JC?
That's what I need. It's perfect.
Yeah.
This is going to be a breakthrough. You have no idea. I've got a plan.
Well, I loved doing that with Grace and Gunner and all. I still have the plaque that they made for me. They made one for you.
I need a picture of that, please.
Sure. I can give you a picture of that.
Anything you've got, send it to me. JPEGs, anything, because we're going to put together the kind.
Well, it was a one of a kind, type broadcast where children were involved. They got to ask any question they wanted. And class, here's how good it was. And please don't think I'm bragging. Well, maybe I am bragging for the children and for Grace. But what happened was these children would prepare all month. They would rehearse how they were going to ask the question. They wouldn't jump around and scream and bang in the conference room. They had to act like young adults. They were on worldwide radio asking their questions. And they were so well behaved. And if they had follow-up questions they asked, it was 2 hours of, I thought, outstanding radio because of the children and Grace Thorne's ability to get them to focus and pay attention.
The whole concept was wonderful.
They loved it. They all loved it, except for the administration. The administration didn't support it, and not one parent was interested in listening to their child be on national radio. Can you imagine that? That's the truth. That's the truth. J.C.Cole, thanks so much. We'll do it again next week. Same time, same station, and we'll talk about preparedness with J.C.Cole in New Jersey, Dr. Richard Alan Miller in